Bullies try to punch new kid. Fatal mistake. He's a Brazilian fighter no one expected. Jake stepped into Oak Ridge High, and it felt like he'd entered a battlefield. Anxiety twisted knots in his stomach as he scanned the bustling hallway. Lockers slammed, laughter echoed, and whispers floated on the air like ghosts of previous fights. The walls seemed to pulse with tension, each corner hiding a secret. Every student part of an unspoken pact to survive the chaos of high school. Jake knew what lurked beneath the surface. He'd heard the stories of bullying that ran rampant here. He'd seen more than his share of victims in his previous school. But Jake wasn't just another new kid. He carried a spark, a smouldering fire born from years of discipline and resilience in Brazilian martial arts. The kind that made him feel alive, yet terrified of what revealing his skills might bring. He had trained hard, learned humility and control. But there was a constant fear within him. Would he become a monster if he let his fists fly? Suddenly, 3 figures cut through the crowd like a dark cloud. At the forefront was Mike, the self-proclaimed king of the school, exuding arrogance, with broad shoulders and a smirk that could cut glass. He wore his reputation like armor. Right behind him, his sidekicks, Nick and Larry, followed with eager looks, hungry for entertainment. Their eyes darted around, sizing up Jake, the new challenge. "Look who we have here," Mike sneered, stepping closer, his presence overshadowing Jake. "The lost puppy. Bet you think you can stroll in and take over, right?" The hallway stilled, anticipation thrumming in the air. Everyone watched, breaths held. Jake felt every pair of eyes on him, weighing him, judging. His heart raced. Fear and determination danced in his chest. He stood tall, refusing to let them see how deeply their words cut. With a swift shove, Mike pushed Jake against the lockers. The metallic clang echoed like a gunshot. Jake's mind raced. He could fight. He could defend himself. But what would that mean? "Forget it, Mike. He's just a loser," Nick chimed in, laughter dripping from his voice. Jake felt a prickle of anger. He could feel the energy shift. His hands tingled, itching to move. In that split moment, something strange happened. Beneath Mike's bravado, Jake sensed familiarity. It struck him like lightning. Could Mike be connected to his past? A shadow danced in the recesses of his memory. The boy who once took a punch for him in a different school years ago. The one who had vanished when the bullying got too intense. Before Jake could process it, the situation exploded. Fists flew, and the whispers turned into gasps of shock. The pressure built like a wave, ready to break. Jake had a choice: strike back or break the cycle of aggression. He felt the weight of every decision pressing down, 1,000 hearts beating in harmony with his own. Just as he prepared to react, footsteps thundered in the corridor, the principal's arrival imminent. The moment hung like a fragile thread, collapsing into chaos as adrenaline flooded Jake's veins. What would he do? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube removed their subscriptions without warning. Just do a quick check on that red button down below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any of the exclusive content coming your way. And since you're here, smash that like button. It helps me a lot with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, what city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person in this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Just as Jake braced himself, a much larger figure burst through the throng. It was Principal Evans. His presence commanding silence in seconds, like the calm before a storm. He strode forward, his expression a mix of authority and concern. Jake's heart pounded harder. The moment of choice flickered away like a flame in the wind. "Mike, step away from him," Principal Evans barked, eyes laser-focused on the bully. Jake's relief was short-lived, though, as an unsettling tension hung in the air. Principal Evans had been unlucky enough to find himself in the same role as a kid. Bullies lingering at the back of classrooms, sowing fear through their whispers. But he was no stranger to conflict. He'd faced larger ones than this. Mike hesitated, straightening up but not withdrawing. The crowd bristled with confusion, eyes darting between Jake and the principal. Would Mike back down? Would everyone just forget hope and return to their routines? Jake's hands were still trembling, ready to act, yet unsure. Suddenly, a scream pierced the stillness, sharp, chilling, cutting through the tension like a knife. Startled gasps echoed in the hallway. People turned, and in the far distance, there was chaos. It looked like a group of students was crowding around something. The ripple of fear swept through the onlookers. "They're fighting!" someone shouted, panic rising. Jake turned instinctively, his instincts kicking in. He could sense trouble, like a shark sensing blood. He started to move, but then a body crashed into him from the side. It was Nick, tumbling as if fate had decided to use him as a projectile. Nick scrambled back to his feet, a look of horror on his face. There's someone down!" Jake's heart sank. "What do you mean someone's down?" he demanded, trying to peer over the heads crowding the hallway. Then he saw it. A flash of red on the ground. A familiar face. Emma, the girl who'd been kind to him just days before. She was sprawled out, her body still, her eyes wide open, panic frozen in time. Blood pooled beneath her, glinting ominously against the bright linoleum floor. The air thickened, silence freezing the wide gym and hallway as everyone processed the horror unfolding before them. Principal Evans turned pale, glancing back at Jake. An icy realization swept over him. This wasn't just high school drama anymore. This was something much darker. "Call an ambulance!" someone shrieked from the back. But nobody moved. They were rooted to the spot, staring. Bodies trembling, shock gripping them like a vice. Mike's bravado crumbled, fear flickering in his eyes, replaced by something deeper. "No, it can't be her," he whispered, shaking his head in disbelief. Jake's mind reeled. Emma? No, not her. She was supposed to be okay. They had talked about their hopes, their plans for a summer filled with adventures. How could this happen? Why? Principal Evans crouched beside her, hands trembling, checking for signs of life. Jake shoved his way through the crowd, dread pushing him to the front line. "Emma!" he shouted, the name tasting foreign on his tongue. As he got to her side, everything shifted. Mike, still processing the shock of seeing Emma, stepped back, heart pounding, while Nick's face morphed from disbelief to something darker. Jake's blood turned to ice. There was something behind Nick's expression, a flicker of recognition. Jake turned, confusion rolling through him. He felt the invisible strings tugging. What did Nick know? What was really happening here? Then he noticed a small symbol on the back of Emma's jacket, something Jake had seen before. As emotions churned and dread seeped into every moment, he was left with shadows of secrets swirling in the chaotic air. He felt like the ground had slipped from under him. Nothing made sense. Everything was turning upside down. What did this mean for him? What would they, all discover about Emma, about each other. Jake's heart raced, not just for fear of the moment, but fear of the unraveling truth waiting just beneath the surface. As Jake crouched alongside Emma, the weight of panic settled onto his chest like a stone. Her eyes, once bright, were now wide and unseeing. The world around him began to fade, the buzzing crowd transforming into a distant hum, overshadowed by the overwhelming reality of the moment. Emma couldn't be gone. She just couldn't. "Emma!" he cried again, desperation flooding his voice. But no response came. Only the quiet terror of the students encircling them, rooted in place like statues of stone. Principal Evans' hands shook as he checked her pulse. Jake could almost hear the silent prayer rippling through. The crowd. A collective hope that this was all a nightmare, that they would wake up to find her laughing with them again. Then, just as fear threatened to swallow him whole, a sudden gasp cut through the noise. It was Nick, his eyes wide with a terror that felt almost contagious. "I think I saw something," he shouted, his voice cracking like glass. Jake turned to him, confusion rippling. "What do you mean, saw something? What are you talking about?" Nick's breath was jagged, each inhale strained. "The jacket! It had the symbol. It was from the club." The crowd shifted, eyes widening in horror. The mention of a club stirred something inside Jake. He could feel the ghost of fear gripping him tighter. The rumors of a secret society whispered in corners, the stories of a dark group that haunted the edges of the school surfaced in the minds of students. Faces turned towards Jake, uncertain glances asking if he knew, if he was part of it. But then another voice rang out, cutting through the tension like a knife. It was a girl near the front, shaking her head in disbelief. "No, it's not possible. Emma wouldn't be involved with them." "Why not?" Nick shot back, eyes darting. "Maybe she was hiding it. What if she's been playing us all along?" Jake felt the rage bubble within him, rising like a tide. "Stop, this isn't the time." But deep down, his heart couldn't resist the gnawing suspicion. Was it possible? What did he really know about Emma? Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the far end of the hallway, breaking through the chaos. A nearby locker swung open violently, smacking into the wall. A figure stumbled out. A boy with wild hair and panic in his eyes. Nick's twin, Ryan, who everyone knew was troubled. Always searching for trouble. "I know what happened to her," Ryan screamed, voice wrapped in fear. "I was there when it happened. I saw the whole thing." Jake felt his stomach drop. "What do you mean, the whole thing?" "I saw her and—" Ryan began. But before he could finish, he froze. A strange look crept across his face, like he was discovering something he wished he hadn't. Then something explosive occurred. The locker. His side Ryan burst open again, this time taking him by surprise. It swung wildly, hitting him hard. His body crumpled to the ground. Disturbed whispers ran through the crowd. Jake glanced back at Emma, his heart racing. In that instant, behind the horror, something changed, almost a flicker. He saw her jacket again, resting against the gym floor like a silent witness. The symbol, a snake coiling around a dagger, was unmistakable. But why? Jake's mind reeled. What had Emma been a part of? And what did Ryan see? As uncertainty gripped the air, Jake knew one thing for sure. Nothing was as it seemed. In this web of secrets and lies, everything was unraveling. Relationships, trust, it would all shift. Jake's pulse thrummed loudly in his ears. He could feel the impending crash of truths ready to burst forward. In the distance, sirens wailed, approaching like the herald of a storm. The pieces of this puzzle didn't fit. But the game was on, and the stakes had never been higher. With each unanswered question, Jake felt the world tilt beneath him. What would they discover next? The horror had only just begun. As Jake was crouched beside Emma, the blood pooling around her, the world around him felt distant, like watching a movie through thick glass. The chaos buzzed, but it was muted. Just a backdrop to the horror unraveling in front of him. Panic clawed at his insides, squeezing tight. He couldn't breathe. "Someone get help!" he shouted again, but his voice was swallowed by the crowd's murmurs of confusion and dread. Principal Evans was shaking his head now, his hands trembling over Emma, as if trying to will her back to life. And just like that, the energy shifted. Nick, still regaining his breath from the chaos of moments ago, suddenly perked up. I just remembered! The club! They said they were going to... "Shut up!" Mike barked. His bravado shattered, his fear bubbling right beneath the surface. His eyes darted, wild with thoughts Jake couldn't quite catch. But Ryan, still on the ground, grimaced as if fighting through an unseen wave of pain. "No, I remember. I don't know how, but she was involved. That night, it was a party." Jake's heart thudded. A party? The one Emma had mentioned in passing? "What are you talking about?" But before Ryan could speak, a violent crash sent the crowd jumping in unison. The hallway trembled, a loud bang echoing off the walls, as if the building itself was groaning. Suddenly, the lights flickered, dimming into a ghostly hue. "What was that?" someone screamed, eyes wide, panic spiraling. Jake's pulse raced, heart hammering in his chest as shadows loomed larger on the walls. Then, out of the chaos, a figure emerged, tall, cloaked in darkness, stepping through the throng like a ghost haunting a graveyard. Students parted, fear written across their faces. The figure moved toward Emma, face obscured by shadows. "Get away from her!" Jake yelled, rising up, adrenaline surging. But the figure brushed past him, kneeling beside her body with a swiftness that sent chills down Jake's spine. In an instant, the figure whipped off its hood. The crowd gasped collectively, a wave of disbelief crashing over them. "Emma," the figure whispered, voice trembling. It was Emily, Emma's twin sister. Jake's jaw dropped. No one had mentioned her. She had been out of town. "Emily, what are you doing here?" Jake managed, the questions tumbling out. But Emily didn't respond. Instead, she gently placed her hands on Emma's shoulder, as if drawing strength from her. The air thickened, a heavy shroud of anticipation filling every corner. Then came the twist. You were all fooled. She didn't just go to parties. She was investigating, Emily said, voice shaking. Emma didn't want to be part of the club. She wanted to take them down. Frozen moments collided in Jake's mind like a car crash. All the whispered conversations, late-night chats, every secret Emma had shared suddenly felt tainted. What do you mean? What was she investigating? The club? The word felt foreign in his mouth, a lie wrapped in chaos. At that moment, there was another crash, a series of bangs reverberating through the hallways. And then everyone's phones buzzed. Alarms. Texts. Screens lit up with messages broadcasting a sinister warning. The club is coming for you. Jake's heart plummeted. The reality of Emma's struggle became clearer, a shockwave hitting him in the gut. She had been in danger all along, and he had been blind to it. "Run!" Principal Evans shouted, his voice finally cutting through the fog of disbelief. But all Jake could do was stare at Emily, who now looked back at him, fear racing through her eyes. We have to find out what she really knew. They won't stop until they get what they want. In that moment, the world felt like it was shifting beneath his feet. Relationships built on trust crumbled. Shadows danced in uncertainty, and the dark truth loomed large. Jake didn't know what came next, or if they could truly unravel this mystery. But one truth glowed brighter than the rest. Everything he thought he knew was about to change forever. As Jake stared at Emily, the tension in the air thickened, swirling around him like a storm. He could see the fear in her eyes, the way they flickered with uncertainty. "We need to understand what she was really doing," Emily said, voice cracking. "They'll come for us next if we don't." The crowd shifted restlessly, whispers rising like smoke. Students exchanged worried glances, hearts beating faster as panic pulsed through them. Jake felt a knot in his stomach, a sense of dread tightening around him. What did Emma know? What had she gotten herself into? "Jake!" shouted Nick, his voice urgent. "What if she was after us too? What if she knew something about the club?" His expression was a mix of fear and anger, a cocktail of emotions that set Jake on edge. "Shut up!" Ryan chimed in from the ground, still trying to put himself up. "This isn't about you." Before Jake could react to the growing chaos, a sound echoed from the hallway, a sharp, resounding bang like thunder. Everyone froze. Eyes darted towards the source. A door burst open at the end of the corridor, slamming against the wall with a force that sent shivers scudding through the throng. And then he stepped in. A boy, tall and imposing, his face hidden under a ski mask. He had an air of menace that cloaked him like a shroud. In one hand, he held a baseball bat, gripping it like it was an extension of himself. The crowd gasped collectively, horror setting in like ice in their veins. "Everyone back!" the masked boy shouted, voice muffled, but unmistakably commanding. Jake's heart raced, fear crashing through him. "What do you want?" he shouted back, desperate to defend Emma, desperate to protect whatever was left of this spiraling situation. The masked boy took a step forward, eyes glinting under the mask. "I know who you are, Jake. You're not really a new kid. You've been tracked since the start." Jake froze. "What? What do you mean?" Emma thought she could hide in plain sight, but she was wrong. The boy's voice dripped with something sinister, and now she's paying the price for it. Suddenly, Emily shouted at the figure, "You don't know anything! Get away from here!" But doubt seeped into her voice as her hands trembled. The masked boy tilted his head, taking in the crowd, the fear-stricken faces. "You think this is just a school? It's a breeding ground. We know each other. We know everything." A chill snaked through Jake. What was he saying? Then, just as inexplicably, the masked boy turned and ran, careening down the hallway away from them, the bat swinging wildly, echoing like thunder against the walls. "Hey!" Jake shouted, adrenaline surging. He darted after him, legs pumping, but the figure was fast, weaving through terrified students who were too frozen with fear to move. As he reached the doorway, Jake grabbed the handle. Flinging it open, he stepped outside and skidded to a halt. The boy was gone, blending into the swirl of chaos outside, where the emergency lights cast red shadows across the ground. "Jake!" Emily's voice tore through his mind, pulling him back. He turned, heart pounding, realizing he'd left Emma behind. Panic exploded anew. Why was he chasing a figure that had no answers? Questions twisted and churned in his mind like a storm. Who was that boy? How did he know about him? How did he know about Emma's secrets? He rushed back inside, eyes searching desperately for Emily. But everything had changed. Students were pulling out their phones, searching for answers. Whispers turned to shouts as the reality began to sink in. The rumors had spread faster than the truth. "Jake!" Emily yelled again, this time her eyes wild. "What did you see? He was talking about you. You need to tell me everything you know." The weight of her words hit him as a realization washed over him. His breath caught, mind racing. "I don't know anything. I just wanted to protect her." But as he stood there, gazing into Emily's frantic eyes, a sense of creeping fear took hold. He couldn't shake the feeling that the questions were shifting, spinning around him like a whirlwind. The truth was no longer black and white. It was cloaked in shadows. With sirens wailing in the background, Jake's heart raced. A truth he had believed to be solid now felt like quicksand. Suddenly, everything he thought he knew cracked and splintered. Who was he really? What had Emma been entangled in? Before he could answer, another voice cut through the chaos. It was Principal Evans, face pale but resolute. "Everyone needs to leave. This is no longer just a school matter." Jake's mind reeled. What did he stumble into? As the crowd surged, the panic boiling over, he felt himself being swept away, caught in the tide of uncertainty. And then, without warning, something in him snapped. A realization struck hard. The fight wasn't just with the club. It was with secrets deeper than he could imagine. They were all part of something larger, darker. And at that moment, Jake knew he had to uncover the truth. Even if it meant losing everything he thought he knew. Jake felt the shadows closing in. Fear gripped him, and he wanted to scream. "This isn't just a school!" Principal Evans shouted again, his face pale, urgency lacing every word. "Everyone needs to leave! Now!" The wall of students around him pushed forward, a frantic swarm, desperate to escape the escalating chaos. Jake turned to Emily, her wide eyes searching his, filled with a mixture of fear and something darker. "We need to find answers," she pleaded, voice trembling. "The club, Emma! We can't let them get away with this." But as they surged into the hallway, the space around him buzzed with confusion and echoing screams. He could hardly process it all. Then he felt it, a sudden chill, like the world was shifting. Behind him, there was another scream, piercing through the frantic noise. "Jake!" It was Nick, his face waxen, eyes locked on something behind them. "Look out!" Before Jake could react, shadows lunged. A group of masked figures slid into view, moving like a pack of wolves. They advanced quickly, chaotic and violent, baseball bats and metal rods glimmering ominously. The air thickened with dread, the crowd parting in a wave of terror like water moving from a sudden splash. "Get back!" Jake shouted, instincts kicking in. But it was too late. The figures were upon them, swinging their weapons with fierce urgency. Suddenly, there was an explosion of sound. A metal bat collided with a locker, the clang reverberating like thunder. Students screamed, scattering like leaves caught in a storm. Jake turned, adrenaline surging. But something caught his eye first. A flicker of movement, a flash of red hair. "Emma?" he gasped. At that moment, he felt the world tilt. the chaos faded, replaced by a tunnel vision that focused on the girl emerging from behind the gang of attackers. It was her, Emma, alive, wide-eyed and pale, but she was standing there, defiant and fierce. "Stop!" Emma shouted, voice trembling but authoritative. Confusion rippled through the crowd. Jake's heart raced, a wild beat of hope intertwined with disbelief. "Emma!" He reached out, but she held up a hand, stopping him. "Stay back," she cried, stepping forward. The masked figures hesitated. "They're not here for you. They're—" Before she could finish, one of the attackers lunged. A swift motion, but sent Jake's heart racing. But Emma moved with unbelievable speed, one fluid motion ripping through the tension. She caught the bat mid-swing, yanking it from the figure's grip and swinging it back with deadly precision. A sickening crack echoed. The attacker fell, collapsing to the ground in shock. But the stunned silence that followed shattered everything Jake thought he understood. "Emma!" he breathed, but his voice cracked. What was happening? How? Just then, Nick broke through the crowd, eyes wild, breath panting like a dog. "Emma, what are you doing? You can't!" "Enough!" she shouted, her voice stronger, slicing through the chaos like a knife. "You don't understand!" Before they could process her words, something changed. The attackers hesitated, and suddenly, the ski mask figure from before spoke again, voice dripping with venom. "You think you can just betray us, Emma? You forget what we're capable of." And that's when it hit Jake like a freight train. Betrayal. Emma was part of this. The club, the whispers of dark shadows, every plan they had discussed, every secret she had kept. It was all a lie. "No, it can't be," he gasped, the ground beneath him crumbling. You were spying on them." Emma turned sharply, eyes blazing with fire, but they flickered with something deeper, pain, regret. "I had to know. I had to protect you." But before she could explain, more attackers surged forward, and chaos erupted. Fists flew, backs hit lockers, and cries filled the hallway. A scream ripped through the air, a voice that sent ice water through Jake's veins. It was Emily, wrenching himself from his shock, her face twisted in horror. "Emma, no!" But the world spun. Movement was frantic, and Jake's heart dropped. Before he could even blink, he saw Emily stumble, the cloud parting like the sea. A figure, one of the attackers, had shifted focus, a dark glint in their eye. He moved fast, too fast, getting closer to Emily, his intentions terrifyingly clear. "No!" Jake roared, racing towards them. But everything slowed. Emily's face twisted in terror as the attacker lunged, darkness hovering over her. Then it happened. The masked figure swung and the world shattered. Jake could only watch, frozen, as the inevitable collided with their lives. What would become of them now? As the dust settled, Jake's heart sank deeper. Emma's betrayal, the sickening twist, it all felt like a nightmare. He had to uncover the truth, but in this chaos, who could he trust? The very ground of their lives had been shaken, and the consequences were only just beginning to unravel. As Jake watched in horror, Emily stumbled, her face going pale like she had seen a ghost. The swing of the bat was swift, but everything felt slow. He felt the world freeze around them. "Emily!" he screamed, knowing it was too late. His heart raced, dread pooling within him. Just before impact, another figure shot forward from the crowd, a blur of movement that jolted Jake back to reality. It was a girl he barely recognized, Mia, a quiet student from his math class. She had a wild look in her eyes. Determination etched into her features. "No! Get down!" she shouted, pushing Emily out of the way. The bat whooshed through the air and connected with Mia instead. The sickening crack sent a wave of nausea through Jake. Time seemed to stretch. Thin like a rubber band about to snap. "No!" he shouted, rushing towards them. Mia crumpled to the floor, gasping, the chaos around them fading momentarily. Blood pooled beneath her, and Jake's chest tightened with panic. "Somebody help!" he yelled, desperation clawing at him, but the crowd was paralyzed, watching, fear gripping them like a vice. "Get back!" the masked attacker yelled, frustration warping his voice. The other figures shifted and moved, ready to pounce again like wild animals. In that moment, Jake's instincts kicked in. He turned to Emma, who was still clutching the bat, her eyes wide with disbelief. "We need to help her!" he cried out, but uncertainty clouded her expression. "Jake, wait!" she started, but her words fell on deaf ears. Jake knelt beside Mia, heart racing, panic threatening to consume him. He could feel her trembling, breath coming out in gasps. "Mia, stay with me!" he urged, wanting to shake her into consciousness. But then, something shifted again. Emily, in rising panic, lunged toward Mia. "No, you were supposed to protect us, Emma. You let her get hurt." But before Jake could register what was happening, the masked boy burst back into view, eyes darting wildly between them. "Enough!" he shouted, voice dripping with anger. "This isn't how it was supposed to go." The crowd murmured, apprehension creeping in. Tension crackled like electricity. Jake forcibly met the boy's glare, compelling him to reveal more. Then, in a moment that sliced through the chaos, the boy yanked off his ski mask. A wave of shock rippled through the group as a familiar face emerged. It was Ryan, Nick's twin. "What?" Jake gasped, confusion spiraling through him. He couldn't make sense of it. "You?" "Emma was never supposed to find out," Ryan said, voice trembling. But there was something darker hidden in his words. She was digging too deep. Panic enveloped Jake, his mind racing to connect the pieces. "What do you mean?" The air grew thick with unanswered questions. Emily was still hovering over Mia, tears spilling down her cheeks. "What's going on? What did you drag us into, Ryan?" But Ryan's eyes clouded over. "I thought we could trust her. I thought she'd be on our side." Just as the tension reached a breaking point, a sudden explosion ripped through the air, an ear-splitting crash that sent everyone reeling. A part of the ceiling above cracked and fell, debris raining down like confetti. Screams erupted, chaos consuming them again as students dove for cover. As dust filled the air, through the haze, Jake glimpsed a figure at the end of the hall. A person framed in shadow, watching it all go down. The moment his eyes locked onto that figure, something inside him twisted. That face, that unmistakable profile, it burned into his memory. His breath hitched as realization crashed hard. It was his old friend, Oliver, the one who had vanished when things got rough back in his old school, the one he thought was lost forever. "Jake!" Oliver shouted, voice carrying through the chaos. "You need to get out! This isn't what it seems. They're coming!" Jake felt his heart racing, and then, just like that, the world flipped on its head. All those years had blurred together, and here it was, crumbling before him. A tangled web of deceit and betrayal had woven through their lives, and he felt the ground beneath him start to slip away. "Wait! Oliver!" "What's going on?" Jake cried, desperate for answers. But Oliver was lost in the chaos of the crowd, pulling back into the shadows as quickly as he had appeared. Everything felt wrong. The truth was spiraling out of grasp. How did everything he thought he knew shift so drastically in an instant? With Mia collapsing beside him, Emily distraught, and Oliver vanishing, Jake felt the cold grip of fear clutch at his heart. The shadows were closing in, and there was no way out this time. As Jake watched Oliver vanish into the shadows, panic blared through his mind like a siren. Everything felt like it was spinning out of control. Mia was down, Emily was distraught, and chaos swirled around them like a cyclone. He could sense the urgency crashing over him, pulling him deeper into a sea of confusion. "What are we supposed to do?" Jake shouted into the noise, desperation rising in his throat. He scanned the room, pleading with everyone to wake up, to see what was happening. But the crowd was still frozen, stuck in that moment of horror, eyes wide and voices lost. "Emma, we have to get Mia out of here," he urged. But she remained glued to her spot, eyes darting, haunted. Then, suddenly, there was a crackle, a loud blast from the far side of the hallway. The lights flickered again, sparks flying. The crowd jumped, screams erupting as the electricity surged wildly, before plunging them into darkness. "Jake!" Emily cried, her voice thin against the overwhelming chaos. In that moment, it was as if the world around him shattered. Heart pounding, he instinctively reached for Emma. "We can't stay here. We have to go." But just as he pulled her toward him, he felt a jolt, a pain that shot through his body like electricity. A metal rod had been thrust into his side, sharp and brutal. Everything went white, blinding him in an instant. "Jake!" Emma screamed, but her voice sounded far away, the panic tearing through her words. He crumpled to the ground, gasping, pain ricocheting through him. And then, blurred faces gathered around, shadows creeping in close. Jake fought to keep his eyes open, to piece together the chaos swirling around him. "Don't move!" someone shouted, but it was a muffled command, fading into the background noise. Jake tried to breathe. Each inhale felt like fire, and dread filled his chest like a weight. Then, as he lay there, something shifted. The air thickened with tension as the figure reappeared. The ski mask pulled down tight. It was Ryan again, and he was holding something else, something glimmering in the faint light. A blade. "This is bigger than you think." "Jake," he hissed, eyes flickering wildly. "You never understood what Emma was truly involved in." What are you talking about?" Jake managed, his voice barely a whisper, fighting against the heaviness threatening to pull him under. "Emma has been playing both sides all along," Ryan yelled, his voice echoing through the confusion. The words struck Jake hard, piercing through the fog of pain. She never wanted to take them down. She wanted to be part of it all. The declaration hit like a punch to the gut. No, that can't be true. Emma wouldn't. But as clarity began to seep back in, shadows tangled before him. He saw her, Emma, caught in an entangled web of lies, her expression shifting. "Jake, I had to know," she yelled back, desperate, as if she was defending herself. "I was trying to protect you." Before he could fully comprehend the weight of her words, the noise erupted again. A crash! The wall behind them buckled, splintering outward in a spectacular eruption of dust and debris. Screams filled the air, chaos rising. A relentless beast. And then it happened. Just as Jake braced himself for impact, a figure dove from the shadows, a bright flash barreling into him with force. It was Oliver. He lunged at Ryan, knocking the knife from his hand, and a shout erupted as the blade clattered to the ground with a sickening clink. "Stop!" Oliver shouted, his voice fierce and commanding. "You have no idea what you're messing with." But in that whirlwind moment, something shifted again. That left everyone breathless. From the glaring chaos, Oliver paused, eyes narrowing dangerously. "Emma, you lied." Jake felt the world tilt once more. "What do you mean, lied?" Oliver's face morphed, a tightness twisting around his brows. "You're the traitor. You led them right to us." A weighty silence pressed down. Jake's heart raced, confusion suffocating, as everything around him blurred into darkness again. Betrayal hung thick in the air, mingling with the remnants of fear. And in that breath, everything he thought he understood shattered like glass. Who was truly a friend? Who was truly an enemy? As Oliver and Ryan squabbled over the remnants of trust, Jake found himself fighting against the tide of uncertainty. In the dim glow of panic, a newfound fear learned to take hold. Truths twisted, relationships forever changed, and the darkness loomed closer yet. He had to know, what did this mean for him? What brewing storm lay before them? The answer hung heavily, and in that moment, he understood that nothing would ever be the same again. Jake's heart thundered against his ribcage as memories unfolded like a book he thought he'd closed. Oliver's words hit him like a punch. Emma was a traitor? It felt unreal. Everything he believed about her flipped upside down. The betrayal stung deep, but he couldn't process it now. Not with Mia collapsed on the floor. "Help! Someone call for help!" he shouted again, his voice breaking the chaotic air. Emily was crying, desperately holding Mia, whose face was pale. The scene around them turned frantic. A student scrambled to safety. Some trying to record on their phones. Others just staring, too terrified to move. "Get back!" Ryan yelled, brandishing the knife, eyes wild. Everyone recoiled, fear gripping them tighter. Oliver took a cautious step forward, positioning himself like a shield. "Ryan, stop!" Oliver demanded. "This isn't the way." But all of it fell away when loud footsteps hammered toward them from the other end of the hall. A fresh surge of panic swept through, costumes of fear weaving through the crowd. Jake turned, expecting more attackers, but instead it was a group of school security, storming in like a wall of authority, calling for order. Then, boom, a sound echoed. The loud blast knocked more debris loose, the whole hallway quaking. People screamed, scattered like leaves in the wind. Jake's chest tightened as he shielded Emily and Mia. The shadows danced with menace. And just like that, a figure emerged from the chaos, moving with an inhuman speed. A tall girl, mask covered in dark fabric flapping against her face, lunged right toward them. "No!" Jake shouted, but it was too late. The girl collided with Ryan, the knife tumbling from his grip. "What are you doing?" Ryan shouted, writhing beneath the sodden weight. "Get off him!" The girl's voice cut through the madness, a fierce whisper that echoed with authority. And then she yanked down her mask. It was Abby, his old childhood friend. The girl who had moved away years ago. All of Jake's shock faded as realization washed over him. "Abby, what are you doing here? You can't—" "Shut up!" Abby yelled, shaking off Ryan. "This isn't over until we reveal the truth." "Truth?" Jake echoed, confusion bubbling up again. How could they possibly talk of truth when chaos reigned? "What do you mean?" Emma stood nearby, emotions swirling on her face. "You don't understand. This whole thing—" But before she could finish, another figure slipped between them. A silhouette materializing from the shadows. The very person they had been looking for. "Is this what you wanted?" Oliver shouted, glaring at Abby. "We gave you a hand, and you come back like this." With wide eyes, they followed his gaze. At that moment, they recognized the figure. The principal. Principal Evans emerged, a heavy darkness around him, looking more like a storm cloud than a leader. "What's going on?" he demanded, authority booming. "You think this is a game?" But the unexpected chaos didn't stop there. From behind him, another figure joined, the very last person they had ever expected. Tim, the quiet kid who sat in the back of every class. Only now, he wasn't quiet at all. "Surprise!" he yelled, pulling off a black hoodie, revealing symbols on his shirt, the same twisted emblem Jake recognized all too well. "Thought you could get away with this, did you?" The moment shattered. Everything about their high school experience came rushing back like a tidal wave. The rumors, the whispers. Tim had been more than just a quiet observer. He was part of it all. Jake's mind spun. Nothing made sense anymore. Each face bore new meanings, hidden connections intertwining with every moment they shared. The walls felt like they were closing in. "I'm done hiding," Tim sneered, eyes blazing with something darker. "And if you think you can fight this, you're wrong." Every knot in Jake's stomach twisted tighter. They thought they knew who their friends were, but now trust felt like a joke. As he glanced at Emma, fear prickled down his spine. Who could be trusted now? The room buzzed with unspoken tension, questions swirling like smoke. And in the middle of it all, the truth felt more elusive than ever. As faces flickered with fear and disbelief, an unbearable weight settled over them. What did this mean for them? Where did it all go from here? With the truth hanging in the air, Jake knew one thing for sure. Nothing would ever be the same again. The tension in the hallway was almost unbearable. Jake's heart thundered as he watched Oliver, Abby, and Ryan circle the drama unfolding. Each face held a mixture of fear, betrayal, and a flicker of hope. Mia lay unconscious, a fragile figure in the sea of chaos, and he felt a deep pit of dread in his stomach. "Just calm down," Principal Evans barked, his voice echoing against the walls. "We need order. Everyone step back." But nobody listened. Students whispered among themselves, hearts racing, eyes darting between the groups. Jake felt a rush of anger surge through him. They were all caught in the crossfire. A dance of deception and fear. "Shut up, all of you!" Emma finally cried out, her voice breaking through the din. "This isn't the time for fighting. We need to help Mia." Oliver shot her a look. "We don't even know where your loyalties lie anymore, Emma. You played us all." But it was too late. The shadows were closing in, and Jake took a step forward. No more secrets. What's really going on? Why did Emma lie? Anger surged through him, but it was laced with confusion and a desperate need for clarity. Abby stepped up. Emma wasn't just spying on the club. She was collecting evidence. They're dangerous. Evidence? Everything swirled around him, and in that moment, everything he loved felt threatened. "What are you saying?" Ryan spoke again, his voice shaking with anger. "You think this is just about school politics? No, it's bigger than you know." The tension crackled like static in the air. "Tell us!" Jake shouted, but he could feel the dark energy surrounding them, wrapping around everyone like suffocating fog. Suddenly, a loud alarm blared, cutting through the noise and sending everyone into silence. The red lights flashed, pulsing over the gathered faces, heightening the sense of urgency. "Evacuate!" A voice crackled over the intercom. "Immediate evacuation." That was all the push Jake needed. "We have to get Mia out!" he yelled, rushing to her side. He gently shook her shoulder, desperate. "Mia, come on, please!" "Jake, we can't stand here!" Emily urged, looking around, panic rising. Okay, but we can't leave her." He glanced around, searching for help. "Somebody, get help!" Just then, a group of security guards burst into the hall. Cutters of chaos, they hurried to assess the scene, assessing Mia's condition and the panic that enveloped Jake's heart. "She needs an ambulance," one of them stated plainly, moving forward with swift determination. Jake breathed a sigh of relief, adrenaline coursing through him. As they worked, Jake glanced back at Emma, whose expression swirled with something unrecognizable. "I didn't want this," she yelled, voice breaking. "I wanted to keep you safe." "From what? Being involved in your drama?" He shot back, desperation gnawing. "From them! From the club!" she pleaded. "They wanted something from you. Something dangerous." The guards moved swiftly, wrapping Mia in a blanket to carry her out. "Let's go," one barked, looking back at Jake and the others. But Oliver stepped forward, brow furrowed. "No, wait. They'll come after her. We have to protect her." Jake felt his heart race again. Protect? How do we even know who to trust? "Trust the ones who stood by you," Abby interjected, her voice calm but filled with fire. "That's what matters." "Then what do we do?" Emily asked, her fear palpable. Before Jake could answer, the masked attackers from earlier rushed back in, eyes wild. "We're not done. You think you can just walk away?" "Get down!" Jake shouted, pushing Emma and Emily to the ground as the guards moved to shield them. But before the situation spiraled back into chaos, Oliver faced off against the attackers, determination written across his face. In a flash, the fight broke out again. They moved with fierce urgency, a dance of desperation. But just as the chaos peaked, the sound of sirens wailed from outside, freezing everyone in their tracks. "What now?" Jake breathed, uncertainty chilling him. The attackers exchanged glances, fear flickering in their eyes. And then, without another word, they bolted toward the emergency exit, disappearing into the night. "Did they just leave?" Emily whispered, disbelief hanging in the air. The sudden quiet shattered the lingering tension, like a breath released. They looked at each other, eyebrows raised, minds racing with shock. Where did that leave them? Mia was lifted onto a stretcher, and just like that, reality crashed back in. The threat may have retreated, but Jake could feel the weight of everything they had faced. The shadows still loomed large, and the truth hung like a storm cloud. As the last of the security team ushered them outside, Jake turned to Emma, searching her eyes. "We have to figure this out. Together." She nodded, resolve hardening. "I promise I will help. I just wanted to know the truth." As they stepped into the cool night, a rush of awareness hit. Everything they thought they knew was gone. But with each other, they had the chance to find a way forward. Jake felt a spark of hope ignite in him as the sound of sirens faded away. The path ahead was uncertain, and shadows still lingered. The battle wasn't truly over, but in that moment, they had each other. And maybe that was enough. But listen, before you go, This is the moment to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss upcoming exclusive stories. You need to keep the adventure alive. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Show that you're part of this incredible journey. And flood the comments section below with your reactions and theories about the ending. I want to hear all your thoughts. Finally, don't wait another second to share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to know this conclusion. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions. Let's keep building this amazing community together.